on Athena Stormbringer, and the Thunderbolt, also of Zeus. There is a rather interesting line in Aeschylus' Eumenides concerning Athena. To quote, "I alone of the gods know the keys to the house where his thunderbolt is sealed." End quote. This is Athena speaking to the Erinyes, the Furies, and stating quite directly that she and she alone is in possession to the keys to the store of Zeus' unstoppable thunder weapon, which is, we may say, the Greek equivalent to what we know in Vedic terms to be the Vajra, but also in a more broad-spanning Indo-European typology, the world spear wielded by the Sky Father. I read this, and my mind immediately went to the Vedic imperatives. In RV 8:100, for instance, we have Vak Saraswati acting to provide Indra with the Vajra. It is sealed away in her realm, the waters, and is only able to be unlocked for his use via the proper rites and offering to her. See my earlier work, First Layer Claims Our Eulogy, Understanding Rigveda 8:100, Indra, Vach, for more upon that. There is also a bit of a pattern to this, as we also have attestation for Saraswati, this time working in concert with the Ashvins, producing another Vajra for Indra's use in slaying Namuki. Again, this special weapon is produced following Indra's agreement to provide Saraswati Vach and the Ashvins with sacrificial portion. The symbolic sense being communicated here is, of course, that it is through piety and prayer, the proper rites, that such mystical weaponry is to be made available to the proper devotee, or even deity. And in the case of Athena possessing the only keys, or should I say, the only knowledge which forms the keys, to the location of Zeus' thunderbolt storing, it may perhaps be the same concept being dimly recalled by the ancient Greeks. Certainly, as I have repeatedly demonstrated, for example in Hail Hydra Slayer, on the mythic combat of Heracles and Athena, Indra and Vak Saraswati against the demon dragon of the water, there is a strong correspondence between Athena and Vak Saraswati. And certainly the correspondence between the Thunderbolt of Zeus is an almost self-apparent one, although I should clarify that somewhat. First by noting that the Vajra is not only wielded by Indra, but also by Rudra, in Rigveda Mandala 2, Hymnal 33, line 3, amidst occasional other deities. Second, by observing that in the manner of Zeus' thunderbolt, the Vajra is not necessarily just a percussive striking weapon, such as a mace or a hammer or a club, but rather can manifest also as a thrown projectile weapon, in the case of Zeus akin to a javelin perhaps, and in the case of the Shaivite representations of this, even a not necessarily thrown, a long spear or staff type of panoply. And third, that this particular point of evident linkage should not be read as establishing a correct parallel of Zeus with Indra, as some are wont to do. Dyaus Pitar is Dyaus Pitar, the Indo-European Sky Father, also known as Rudra. And we have quite a few direct citations in the Vedas for that. However, the Greeks, due to a phenomenon we have taken to often referring to as Mesopotamia, wherein the cultural influence from the ancient Near East altered how the Greeks thought about their own mythology and practice, they wound up syncretizing elements and features of the Indo-European striker thunder deific with their most prominent Skyfather figure. The proper striker thunderer figure in Greek mythology is, of course, Heracles, although there is plausibly rather more than one, Perseus being another prominent example. A figure also armed by Athena for his mythic combat against the demon dragon of the water known as the Hydra, in a manner closely comparable to the assistance rendered by Vak Saraswati to Indra for the latter's combat against Vritra. And we've written quite extensively about that in a number of pieces, including the recent on the Indo-European typology of Aeolus series we're currently running. But even leaving that aside, the theme of the warrior wisdom word goddess assisting and empowering the Sky Father is also prevalent. We can see it in the relationship between Devi and Rudra, as extolled in the famed Devi Shukta of the Rigveda Mandala 10, 125, and at myriad other points within the Hindu canon. It is she who allows the weapon of Rudra to function, to strike and slay the hater of devotion, to quote the hymnal in question. And we may also fairly consider in light of Athena's statement per Aeschylus that it is the knowledge which unlocks this storehouse for the thunder weapon. The role of Athena in imparting the requisite elements of mind to her chosen champions. The role of Archdevi in making the male she chooses or loves, contingent upon how you interpret karma in the relevant verse. She makes him a rishi, a seer, a Brahmin. And it should be noted the ability of the seriously sagacious Brahmin as a combat theologian to similarly unlock the awesome destructive power inherent in a certain mantra to empower the warhead of Brahmastra class weaponry is quite adjacent to this. Or the implication in the Ynglinga saga that it was Freya who taught Odin various of his spoken and sung magical powers utilized upon the field of war. See the Furor Teutonicus and Furor Poeticus, the furious goddess given power of both barbarian and Brahmin alike, for further details. So therefore, whether we are presuming that Aeschylus' presentation of Athena as having the knowledge key which can unlock the Thunderbolt of Zeus, to be recollecting that which is found in the Vedic conceptry for the assistance of the striker thunderer, or to the Sky Father, we can reasonably infer that he is recalling an ancient and archaic Indo-European theological belief in this regard. And now this is interesting because Aeschylus is occasionally spoken of as a bit of an innovator when it comes to the depictions of certain aspects of Greek mythology in his plays, as something I have held in a bit of skepticism in the past, instead believing that he is simply the earliest written record of various things that have come down to us, yet which often turn out to have far more archaic Indo-European underpinnings. Examples of this can be seen in my quoting of his Prometheus Bound, in my work on the Griffin, and, as we shall see in a forthcoming piece, his description of those same Erinyes as having strongly comparative conceptual syllabary with elements of the Vedic sphere. As applies Athena of the unyielding adamantine Aegis, therefore, it would appear that the power of the invincible thunderbolt was, and also is, hers. This is certainly the sense one gets when reading Quintus Smyrnaeus' Fall of Troy, wherein he states, "She donned the stormy Aegis, flashing fire, adamantine, massy, a marvel to the gods, whereupon was wrought Medusa's ghastly head. Fearful, strong serpents breathing forth the blast of ravening fire were upon the face thereof. Crashed on the queen's breast all of the Aegis links, as after lightning clashes upon the firmament. Then grasped she her father's weapons, which no god save Zeus can lift, and wide Olympus shook. Then swept she clouds and mist together on high. Night over earth was poured. Haze o'er the sea Zeus watched, and was right glad, as broad heaven's floor rocked neath the goddess's feet, and crashed the sky, as though invincible Zeus rushed forth to war." End quote. This brings together in a single passage, excellently and eloquently expressed, even in translation, something that I have previously detailed in certain other of my works. Namely, that when we are looking at Athena, what we are in fact seeing is a goddess possessed of many of the same features as the Indo-European Skyfather. Thus do we find Athena hailed by Hesiod as both, open quotes, the maiden bright-eyed Tritogenia, equal to her father in strength and in wise understanding, close quotes, but also she who, open quotes, excelled in strength all the deathless ones who dwell in Olympus, close quotes. Hail to Athena, she who stands at the heart of the storm, and imbues the storm's fury. Jai Mata Di.